For today's adventure, we're diving deep into the history of the Pony Express. What's up, everyone? I'm Rachelle, and welcome to Adventure is Never Far Away. This is a channel where I'll teach you how to discover, create, and enjoy your own adventures. Adventures are completely customizable and can happen anywhere. You heard me, anywhere. Join me as I teach you that whatever your situation may be, it's possible to have a life full of adventures. Subscribe and come along as I show you that adventure is never far away. Today's adventure looks a little different. Maybe some of you already know this, but Salt Lake City, Utah sits directly on the old Pony Express Trail. That's right, the Pony Express Trail. Now, for a really long time, I've been wanting to drive on the actual trail. There's a path that runs west of Salt Lake City into Utah's West Desert. But the last couple of weeks, the weather has been so unpredictable and rainy and stormy, and it's a dirt road. And although I've driven over some pretty crazy and rough terrain in my car, I don't mess with mud. Mud is tricky, especially since I don't have like that metal plate that goes underneath your car and protects like the parts of your car from getting ruined. So instead of driving the old Pony Express Trail, I found a monument pretty close to where I work. Let's go check it out. So, quick history lesson about the Pony Express Trail and riders, and I'll try to keep it brief. The Pony Express Trail is just that. It was a trail of about 1,900 miles that spanned between St. Joseph, Missouri and Sacramento, California, where riders would carry mail. Bottom line. And it was kind of like a relay. The riders would switch off. There would be stations kind of dispersed along the way, many of them in Utah. It was a really rough trail. The riders would have to change horses, and oftentimes they weren't able to change horses, and then the horses would basically be run to death. And there's this really cool monument that's in, this is the place, Heritage Park, where it depicts a rider on his horse at an exchange, and it really represents the interdependency that the riders had upon the people that ran the stations, because if the people weren't there to run the stations, they couldn't change riders, they couldn't change horses, and it became very, very difficult to get the mail from point A to point B. So the cool thing about the Pony Express Trail is that it was not an original idea. And this is where, having a degree in history and being a history nerd, I just fall in love and I just completely geek out. The concept of riders carrying news, messages, letters, any kind of correspondence can be dated back to the original pioneer of Genghis Khan. And we know this because Marco Polo, yes, the Marco Polo, the Venetian explorer and adventurer back in the, I think the late 1200s and early 1300s, actually wrote about Genghis Khan using riders to carry correspondence as he was taking over all of Asia. Couple other cool facts about the Pony Express Trail is it wasn't very, I don't want to say it wasn't very effective, but it only lasted from 1860 to 1861. It did cut down on the amount of time it took to send a letter from one coast to the other. Ships used to have to take that down around Patagonia, and then when they had stagecoaches, they would take a long time as well. But when they introduced the Pony Express Trail and the riders, it went down from 6 months to carry a letter from Missouri to Sacramento to 10 days. And I was just thinking about the writers that were chosen to do this. I mean, we get people like, I think, Buffalo Bill. Keep thinking about the writers and the type of backgrounds that they had, and the type of personalities that they had, and the drive that they had to do something so dangerous and so far on the edge of what was known. I mean, when you think about it, at that time, the US was on the brink of civil war. You had the pioneers moving west across the Oregon Trail. You had the Mormon pioneers coming to Salt Lake City. We're at the kind of in the midst of the gold rush to California, and there was such a need of getting correspondence from, you know, the Midwest to the coast. It's just, would that be something that I would want to do? I mean, it would be so dangerous. You're alone by yourself. You're riding your horse as fast as you can, as hard as you can, trying to avoid getting killed. The weather, I mean, I don't know how well the express trail was charted out and mapped out. Man, what an adventure that would be. So behind me is a replica of what one of the stations would have looked like, with a paddock in the back for the horses. Now, one of the cool things about this, it was actually built for the 2002 Winter Olympics that were hosted by Salt Lake City. And it was originally placed up in Heber, which is back behind Park City, about an hour away from where I am right now. And then once the Olympics were over, it was relocated here next to that awesome statue. But then you also have to think about attacks and how is it going to protect itself, and how are the people that were staying there going to protect themselves. Man, the wild, wild west comes to life, seriously. I mean, could you imagine living there by yourself, manning that station, just waiting and hoping that your rider would show up? Now, I've read a bunch of reports, and there was only one time that a sack of mail was actually lost. It's a pretty good track record. I don't know if this is genius or authenticity or a little bit of both, but they've kept the area surrounding the monument and surrounding the station with the original vegetation that was here. They didn't do any kind of landscaping, they didn't build up around it. So you can kind of get an idea of what these riders were dealing with. In case you can't hear it in my voice, this is the kind of stuff that I love. I mean, this is American history. This is raw. This is right next to where I work. It's taken me this long to get here. I can't wait for the day that I can actually drive on that Pony Express Trail out in Utah's West Desert, look at the monuments, and just take a walk through history. Kind of makes me stop and wonder, how many times do we take stuff like this for granted, where there's this huge piece of history within our grasp and we don't take a few minutes to investigate. Literally, this is located on the south end of the University of Utah campus, where I go to work every day. And it's free. Gosh, just imagine being on your own for so long. You are just beelining it to your next destination, and then you come over a clearing and you finally see the station. Something so crude and yet probably sending your heart leaping for joy. So as I'm sitting here, I've just been thinking about what it must have been like to be alive and surviving in the 1860s in Western America. I mean, they needed their correspondence so badly. And, you know, it's something that today we don't really understand because of the technologies that we have, because of the infrastructure that we have. I mean, I can put a letter in the mailbox, which is right next door, and Somebody in California will get it, I don't know, 2 days, maybe. I can send an email and somebody can instantly receive it, or better yet, I can pick up a phone and call someone or FaceTime them. It's hard to remember what it was like to depend on a letter, on a telegram. I mean, telegrams were being worked on during this time. I mean, as the Pony Express riders were racing across Nevada and Utah and Nebraska, they were passing the workers that were working on the power lines for the telegraphs. Man, such a different world. Well, that was a fun adventure. Adventure to the past, adventure within, contemplating what the world was like. And I can't believe I have one more adventure left in my 30 adventures in 30 days. Whew. And then I'm finally going to be able to sit down and actually think about everything that I've done and all the experiences that I've had. So, until tomorrow for our last adventure. See ya.